What's up, everybody? It's Sean Astrom here with SA Studios, and it's tutorial time. I've heard a lot of talk out there on the interwebs about render engines lately, and it's just been kind of overwhelming. There's Arnold, you got Octane, you got Thea, you got RenderMan, you got V-Ray. There's so many. And I see a lot of Cinema 4D users specifically getting pretty confused, and they're always asking on Twitter what render engine to use. And not many people are aware of Corona Renderer, which is soon going to be available for Cinema 4D. I'm currently beta testing the most recent beta. I believe it's A6. But if you just go onto the Corona website and see here and check out the gallery, you'll see some pretty ridiculously amazing renders. Now, obviously, it takes a good artist to create renderings like this, but the quality is, up there with Maxwell, if not better in some ways. And the speed of this render engine is absolutely ridiculous for the quality of images that it produces. And it is CPU based, so you don't have to worry about getting the latest and greatest video cards loaded up in your machine. Now, I went the CPU route in general with the new computer that I built, and I actually have 40 processors, 80 threads. Right now I actually have hyperthreading disabled, but if I go into here under performance, you can see that I have 40 cores here. But with hyperthreading enabled, I actually have 80 threads. So needless to say, my computer is ridiculously fast for when it comes to rendering, especially with a CPU-based render engine. But if you look at everything on the Corona website here, they kind of tell you all the features and everything that's built into the engine. So it's basically kind of, in my opinion, currently right now, for Cinema 4D, it's probably the best render engine in terms of usability, ease of use, and the quality that you get out of the render engine with minimal effort. So I'm going to hop into Cinema 4D here and just show you guys a couple things. So here is a cube. I'm going to bring this in here. I'm going to snap it to the ground. Now, if some of you are wondering how I did that, I actually have a shortcut set up for Shift D that will enable the drop to floor plugin. So if you guys search drop to floor plugin for Cinema 4D, you can find that. And I'm going to increase the size of this guy. I'm just going to make a little room here. Oh boy, I don't think it has to be quite that large. Let's just make a quick little interior scene. I want to do this on the fly from scratch so that you guys can kind of see how you might be able to do this. So let's just make this editable. I'm going to just remove one of the faces here, and then let's pop in some windows here. So let's just bring this guy over here. I'm going to use a little Boolean operation here to create some windows here. And let's do one more in the back here. Excuse my keyboard. I just recently got a mechanical keyboard and it's a little noisy, but definitely a worthwhile purchase. So let's just bring in a Boolean object here. There you are, bool. And let's just throw these guys in here. And now we need to group these. And there we go. Now another quick thing I could do is add some thickness to this using the explosion effects, which makes absolutely no sense. We'll just name this thick. This is one of those little Cinema 4D tricks that I don't know if a lot of people realize, but I can just add some wall thickness here under cluster. I have some thickness, and this is a procedural operation. So there we go. We have a little room here. Now, of course, what I need to do next is go into my render settings and switch over to Corona here. And I'm just going to, let's bring in a quick sky object here, Corona sky, and then a Corona sun. And let's also create a ground plane, and let's just make it really large. And I think I'm going to make it even larger than that. So one of the things that they've done such a ridiculously good job at is the way this plugin is integrated into Cinema 4D is absolutely hands down the best that I've seen out of any render engine, and I've used them kind of all. So if I go over here to the shader list here and bring in a standard Corona shader, I can generate sort of their main shader here and pop this onto my building. And real quickly, I'm just going to add in a camera, and then I'm going to add a Corona camera tag. And we're just going to go override exposure, make sure that's checked on, and then I'm going to do a -5 stops here. Now this will make sure that the render is sort of exposed correctly here. So here we are with this little room rendering, and as you can see here, we've rendered for about 10 seconds. I'm going to stop it, and that's the kind of quality we're getting out of this right out of the bat. Now it is pretty noisy, and what I want to show you is in this last update they added this amazing denoising feature. So if I go here to full denoising and we stop that to 10 seconds and render this again, you'll see here what kind of results we get. So this is sort of a outdoor indoor situation here. Obviously a very simple scene, but you know, it's doing the denoising now, and you can see that it denoised the image based on the 3D model, and it's pretty much perfectly clean. So that took 14 seconds. But what I want to do is show you really what makes Corona stand out, in my opinion, is the plugin integration. So if I create a new Corona material here, let's go to standard, and let's add in some reflection here, and let's just crank up the fraction index refraction here a little bit. Maybe lower the glossiness down. Then under diffuse. Now this is so cool because I can go in here and add in a Fresnel effect, for example, and this is the built-in Cinema 4D Fresnel shader, and it works perfectly with the Corona render engine. And so I could just go in here and add some interesting colors here and get a nice fall off for this color. I can apply this to my sphere object. I'm going to go back to my sun here, and I'm going to rotate this guy around so it's kind of on the other side. I'm going to angle it down a little bit so we're getting some a little more interesting outdoor lighting. And I'm just going to pop this camera in here a little bit closer. I'm going to increase the segments on my sphere to like 120, kind of a lot. And let's do a quick test render of this. So you can see here that the sphere is fully supporting that Fresnel effect that I did on the diffuse channel, utilizing the Cinema 4D's built-in Fresnel shader. So that was 10 seconds, it did its noise reduction, and now you have a perfectly clean image. Now I'm going to increase the glossiness value to something a lot more shiny. And then let's go in here and actually add in some displacement. And again, what makes this plugin so fantastic is I can actually go in here and use the built-in Cinema 4D noise, which is one of my favorite features of Cinema 4D. In fact, I'll hop over to other 3D programs and I get frustrated that there aren't more noise options available. So in Cinema, they give you such an awesome variety. This is kind of out of my recording area, but there's, you know, all these different procedural noises built right into the program. But if I go back to material here and it's going to do a render, you'll see that it's being fully supported here. Now let's do a render here in the picture viewer, and you'll see that that displacement is working on my sphere procedurally, seamlessly, without any UVing or anything. Now I know Octane will support those shaders, but it actually bakes it out to a file, and it does not work in the same procedural way that they do natively in Cinema 4D. So if I go back here to this material, and let's increase the max level to 50, and let's go into our settings here, and under performance, if we just switch the displacement screen size to 1, this is sort of going to increase the displacement quality, and you'll see how quick this renders. Is just absolutely ridiculous how quick that displacement's happening, and the GI and everything else. So here it is. It's going to switch over to the denoising here, And pretty much just like that, we have this extremely clean image with displacement. Now that material is pretty boring, so let's create another one here, and I'm going to make it look a little more interesting maybe by making it a little more red. So that's kind of cool. And then let's go to this placement here and let's just put in something else. And sure, why not? Let's duplicate this sphere and get it over here and pop this guy in here. I'm going to hide my room here and let's see kind of what we're getting in the environment here. So it's calculating the GI, and then voila, you're getting this render this quick, and it looks pretty dang good if you ask me. And again, that displacement is ridiculous. It's doing that based on the Cinema 4D built-in shaders at 16 seconds there. Now granted, I'm at a very small resolution here. I'm at 960 by 540. But let's bring in a couple more objects here. I'm going to go to the content browser. Let's go to visualize 3D objects. Let's grab some glassware. Sure, why not? I'll get rid of this shader and let's create a new Corona standard. And let's make it refractive and reflective, and just like that we have glass. No weird tags that we have to add in order to make the glass behave correctly like you do in Arnold, which is fine. Arnold is phenomenal. I use it for most of my animation stuff these days. But there we have a glass sphere. Let's actually get the glass scaled up here a little bit. And now, obviously, this is a ridiculously simple scene, but I just wanted to show you guys how well Corona works in here. Now, unfortunately, the transparent shaders do not come in the viewport correctly, or the reflective shaders do not appear correctly in the viewport. Hoping that's something that by the time they have the retail version of this, it's working. But in the meantime, all you can do, you can go here and drop in a display tag and just set the textures off, and that will make that a little easier to see. I'm going to hide my grid here, and let's do another quick render here. And as you can see, that glass is looking very nice, but there's one setting here that might add to the realism of the glass. If I go into this glass shader here and under refract, if I enable caustics, that's going to help add to the more physically correctness of this particular material. And we're rendering here, and now we're getting proper shadows from the glass and everything else. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to re-enable my room here, and let's get the glass moved up a hair and get this guy moved. And actually, I think what I want to do is let's lower my room so that the floor is right there. Just use my little shortcut for dropping those guys down to the floor. Now my camera has kind of a lame focal length, so I set that to, well, not lame, but set to the default 36. Let's do another quick test render here. Yeah, so this is, you know, a half inside, half outside shot here. And if you look at how ridiculously nice that glass is looking, most other render engines, other than Maxwell, for whatever reason, they do not handle glass correctly. I don't know why, but Corona does, and that's something I've noticed comparing it to other render engines. But let's get this guy out of the way here. Let's just throw on another noise shader for fun, and let's go into the glass shader here, and let's just add just a little bit of tint to the color here. So that's a little more than I wanted, but there we go. So that's looking pretty good. And let's bring in one other object. I want to try and do like a nice metallic object. Plants. I thought that said pants. I didn't know they had an entire category for pants. That would be pretty hilarious. So let's go in here to, you know what I'm going to do is go into the sculpting folder. Let's go to base meshes. And let's bring in a horse. Why not? Get rid of that horse default material. I'm going to throw this into subdivision surface. Let's just duplicate a material here, go into attributes. Now for metal, we're going to go reflect, diffuse, and let's just do like a nice gold. So I'm going to do kind of a tan color for the diffuse, and then under the reflection channel, we're going to also make this sort of a gold color. But what we want to do is crank up the index refraction to something like 22. And we'll bring the glossiness down. And let's actually bring our diffuse way down. But you still need a little bit of diffuse in order to really kind of get the gold look. And actually, let's set this to like 25. I don't really know the correct values inside of Corona to get these to be, 100% correct. But I think that's close enough. And let's just scoot our little horse over here, and we'll pop him here. And let's do, this is just the most beautiful scene I've ever seen. Let's do a quick render here and see what we got. And the horse material is not overriding that default one there. So save, render. And as you can see, the GI cooks very quickly. And there's my nice reflective metallic horse. Ooh, this is looking pretty goofy. Now, one thing you will get for free using Corona is reflective caustics from all of your reflections. So on my horse there, I'm going to crank up the glossiness so it's like highly reflective. And then actually let's go to displacement and add in just a very subtle sort of bumpiness to this texture. Let's go blistered turbulence, crank up the octaves. Probably don't need to go that high, but just kind of doing this as quickly as possible. And let's set the scale to 25 or something. And then I'm going to pull my camera back a little, and let's push the room back a hair so these guys are a little more, so getting a little more light from the sun there. Boom, boom, boom. And lovely. Let's do a render. And as you can see, it's just cranking through all that. Now this material's pretty ugly. It's not quite as gold as I was hoping to get, but it's displacement, it's reflective metal, and it's looking pretty cool. Just gonna lower this displacement amount down to 0.1. Let's go back here. Maybe it would help if this was just a little more on the yellow side, and then the diffuse was maybe a little more on the yellow side. Now I'm gonna hide the room again. Now, some of the other features that are really cool with Corona are built into the camera tag here. They just added this stuff with the latest beta, but what I can do here is I can actually go in here and, sorry, somebody's calling me. I can go in here and increase some settings such as vignette, for example. So if I set that to 2 and we render, you're going to start to see a vignette in my render. And what's really cool about this is this actually works in real time with the picture viewer. So let's see where my vignette went. Oh, for some reason that didn't get put in there, but let's see here. 5, that's a little much. 3, 1, there we go. So you can start to see this vignette happening here. And I guess you got to be pretty careful with it. There we go. If we increase the fall off, you can see that happening in the picture viewer here. Not only that, but I can go in here to this bloom setting, and I can start to add in some of these effects that you would add in post right here inside the render engine. Now, like white balance, we can warm it up here a little bit if we want, or we could cool it down here. Pretty amazing stuff. And then you have this sort of a tone mapping here. We can increase the contrast. We can increase the saturation. Ooh, that's pretty crazy. And you can see these little glints here we're getting off of these hot spots. That's all using this bloom and glare effect. So again, just really cool features built right into the C4D plugin. Now I'm going to pull the saturation down. Let's pull contrast back. And then let's see what these filmic highlights do, and filmic shadows. It's starting to look really nice, as nice as a golden horse, two glass objects, and this weird blobby thing could. But one of the other amazingly simple things to do is to create some HDR lighting with Corona. Is again incredibly easy to use or do inside here of with the plugin they developed. So if I just go in and create a standard material, and under the diffuse channel, if I load up a HDRI, this is actually one that I'm working on. I have a new sky kit coming out that will be for sale, and if I just drop this guy onto a sky object, I'm going to get rid of actually the Corona Sun and the sky, and we'll bring in a generic Cinema 4D sky, plop that material on there, and just get a nice little preview in the viewport. If I go here and under the editor tab and increase the preview size to 2K, we'll get a much nicer viewport display there once it finishes calculating. This is a 6K HDRI, so it's pretty high resolution. Then I'm going to go back to my camera tag, and I'm actually decrease the exposure back to 0, and let's let this render here and see what we got. So now we have this little scene going on with my HDRI that I one of the few that I'm working on, and as you can see, this is looking pretty cool, and it just finished rendering there in 14 seconds with the noise reduction. But let's bring our room back. I'm going to go into the render settings here, and under general settings, let's disable this time setting here. Full denoising, we got that turned on. Now I'm going to set the pass limit to 25, and let's just position this camera a little nicer, and sure, that looks great. Let's do a quick test render here and see what we get. Now this is looking pretty cool. We got interior dark lighting going on here, very noisy. It's already gotten to 25 passes, and it's done the noise reduction, and as you can see, we have a very clean image. Now for look development and just cranking out images fast, I mean, this is just absolutely dead easy. I don't know of any other render engine that's just easy to use right out of the gate. I'm going to go here with my sky and just spin this sucker around a little so we can get some different lighting. Let's move my camera around here, pull it back a hair, and let's spin this guy a little more so we can get that cool cloud there in the background. Now let's go into the camera settings here, and under focus object, let's drop this glass, and let's go into the tag settings here, and let's enable depth of field. And if we go here under use photographic exposure, I'm going to try and get some quick depth of field here. Let's go F1 and see what kind of crazy depth of field we can get here. We might be really overexposed here, which is cool. I'm just going to back that off a little. Actually, what I should be doing is decreasing my ISO and increasing my shutter speed. Set that back to 0. And let's, just to really see the depth of field effect, I'm going to set my f-stop at a ridiculously high value. And okay, I think we're getting some nice depth of field, but we are definitely overblown here. Let's crank up our shutter speed and see if we can get a little more balanced shot here. We're getting there. Now, let's see what we got here. There we go. I think we're a little more balanced here. Now, I can't quite see yet if, oh, probably help if I enable depth of field. So let's check that and then do a quick render. Now, the IPR is available in the 3D Studio Max version, but currently it's not in the beta, but I have no doubt that by the time they release the public retail version of Corona, that there will be the built-in IPR, which would be similar to the IPR that you get in Octane or Arnold Renderer. But anyway, there's some nice depth of field going on. Just to really see what this is doing, let's drop this guy in a cloner, and let's just do 15. Sure, why not? Let's just send this room out off into the distance there. Let's just see what kind of how the depth of field looks here with these crazy quick renders that we're doing. Yeah, so we're getting some nice depth of field. Our little horse guy here is a little out of focus. Our glass is in focus. So really there's nothing this render engine can't do, but what it does do, it does incredibly fast and incredibly well. So anyway, this was just a quick little intro to Corona. I'm going to actually turn off the depth of field here. Still learning where all these settings are. They just, like I said, incorporated this into the new plugin, the new latest beta. I'm going to make my glass material just a lot less tinted there. And just get my camera set up in a nicer spot. Let's go with like an 18 mil. And let's whip my sky around into a better position. There we go. Look at that. And let's do this. I'm going to go in here and just increase my resolution. Go to the general settings and let's do pass limit of 100. And this would sort of be like if you download the Corona benchmark, it seems to render out to 100 passes, so that might kind of be like their you know, that's where you want to get to, I suppose, in order to get maybe like a super clean image. It's very scene dependent, these pass numbers. But yeah, here we are at 30 seconds, and this is I set this to be too high. I can just stop it now because we're basically clean. It's going to do the denoising, and just like that, we get a little glints here. The sky's looking real good. Now again, remember that I can go into my camera tag here, and I can go down here, and let's just pull back some of this blooming that's going on here. I'm going to decrease the glare bloom. Oh, whoa, look at that. It's pretty intense there. I think that might be a slight bug. But we can fix it by just going in here to the exposure, cranking that back up. There we go. Still again beta. Okay, that's looking good. But what I want to show you is the hue power. It's actually really cool. It'll put those little like almost like chromatic aberration that you get. These post effects are pretty dang cool. I think that bloom power is a little crazy. Let's do 0.2. There we go. That's looking a lot more natural and realistic. But anyway, this little tutorial is almost at 30 minutes here, so I hope that kind of shows you guys a little bit what Corona is all about and how well it's integrated into Cinema 4D. Oh, I almost forgot. I just wanted to show you guys also some of the other shaders that are supported. If I bring in a cube here and I throw in a cloner, and let's just go grid array, and just scale my cube down here a hair. Now this kind of really got me excited because this is the first render engine that I've seen to fully support this. That's a third-party plugin, and that is the variation shader. So if I bring in a new shader here, and under my diffuse channel, if we just go here under effects, and this is definitely out of my recording area, but if we have bring in the variation shader here, just plop that guy into the cloner, and we do a render, and you will see that the variation shader is fully supported inside of Corona procedurally. So that's what's so amazing about this plugin. I think the only other plugin that really supports a lot of the C4D shaders in a procedural way would be V-Ray. But yeah, I haven't seen many else that support it. So it's got some great stuff. Not only that, you could go in here and add in under the bump mapping, you could add in a Corona rounded edges shader, which is always nice. And if I zoom in here, do another quick render, we can see we should be getting some at render time sort of fake beveling going on these cubes. Now we are, but it's definitely a little strong. So if I go in here and decrease the radius to like 1.5, let's try. Fire up the render again. And yeah, it just hands down, this has been the best integrated render engine I've seen in cinema. So here we're getting this nice fake beveling. So if you ever bring in like a crazy CAD model where the geometry is completely out of whack and you can't really bevel it using the bevel deformer or the tools inside of Cinema 4D, this is where an effect like that could come in really handy. But anyway, so much stuff is supported that is built into Cinema 4D that most Cinema 4D users are going to be really familiar with. And to me, that just kind of makes this pretty much the best render engine, third-party render engine that's available for Cinema 4D. So we'll just let that guy finish up. I'll do the stop there, and we'll let it do the denoising. If you look at how noisy this stuff is here in the glass, like boom, cleaned up. So that's a 59-second render. Now, keep in mind, my computer is ridiculously fast. I think I was #1 on their benchmark website for about a week or two. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these, and I hope I didn't ramble on too much. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you guys soon.